Look, how are you, my dear friend?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, it's so good to catch up. I mean, obviously we've known each other a very, very long time. Probably won't say how long because we'll give away our age, but obviously I know everything about you. We've been on quite a journey together, all three of us. We've got the gang together again. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. But just for those that are listening, just give us a little overview of who Graham Locke is.
Who am I? I guess that I sort of came to prominence in the estate agency world working with Mark, your brother.
Mm,
A couple of years before House Network, which we obviously founded together, and we'll talk about that journey. I was a local estate agent in Chingford in East London, just learning the trade for a couple of years. I was there, and that was just at the time that Rightmove were launching they launched in 2001, I believe. And Ian Wright was the guy that launched the adverts, which, you know, being Arsenal fans, was quite fun watching all of that. So Rightmove came along and really disrupted the way that people search for property. And just as I started to learn about estate agency, and this was the version of estate agency that was 100 years old, probably leading up to that point, I'd seen this thing called Rightmove and thought, oh, blimey, this is really interesting. And then my thought turned to because we've disrupted the way people look, should that mean a disruption in the way people sell? Because of this thing that's happening online, and that's where House Network sort of started. Really, was that thought process, and Rightmove changing everything. And it was like, if only we could just put properties on Rightmove, wouldn't they just sell? And that was as basic as I got to with it, really.
yeah.
And Mark and I had obviously known each other way back from school and college and all the rest of it. There's a lot of history there between us, and um, we always said that we'd like to do something together in business because we studied business and finance at college together. We was always a dastardly sort of duo at college. In Somehow we always
And
end up pairing up with each other and causing mayhem, if not in the gym in McDonald's or somewhere like that. So, but we always had this idea that we could do something together, and that never went away. And I think that opportunity came up, and I spoke to Mark about it. Said, I think you'd be perfect to come and help me with this because I don't know what I'm doing on the tech side, and Mark knew a lot more than I did about the tech side of things, and yeah, that was it. So my career really started then, 2002, and then House Network, and then I went to get a real job, as I say, as a managing director of the Property Franchise Group. So then went to learn all about sort of franchising and how that part of agency works. I think there was something like 300 franchisees in that business at the time, and that's been through a lot of changes since I left. And after Property Franchise Group, I set up the FIA, which is a group of, you know, really good independents that get together and share ideas and products and supplier discounts and this, that, and the other, which I absolutely love. I love that business. Got some fantastic members in that, and that led me to other businesses like mortgages, financial services. I moved to Dubai, as many people know. And I've got a few things out here going on. So yeah, all property, all real estate related for me.
mm, I think we've got to touch on that House Network journey, haven't we? I mean, to pioneer a sector of the industry is one thing, but to be in business for 15 years and the journey that you went on during that time, obviously I was part of that, in various different roles during that time. But I'd love to really dig deep into that with the two of you, if you don't mind, because there's stories to be told in as to
There
how
is.
throughout that journey, surely.
I think just something that comes to mind is just really funny. When we was looking at it, we was disrupting this massive industry, billions of pounds of commission is what we were going for. Essentially, wanted to take it over. I remember Mark calling me shortly before launch after a lot of the work we were doing it anyway. But he called me. I think he had a bit of a moment, um, and he said to me,
What one?
Had a
"Yeah,"
few of
he said.
those.
We're disrupting the estate agency industry, right? I was like, yeah, that's it. That's, you know, and we got like down the line here. So I think he was humouring me. He said it's a £6 billion industry, right? That we're going for. I said, yep, that's the one. He said we haven't got any money. I said, I hadn't thought about that. He said, how much can you put in? I said, well, I don't know. I said, I haven't really thought about it. I just, just a great idea, but we both forgot that we might need to put some money into the business and didn't have any money. So I sold my Arsenal share. I think I raised about $3,000 or something like that. And I said, I can do that. He said, okay, well, that's all got to go in. I was like, all of it? He said, yep, the whole lot's got to go in. I'll sort of match it. And that's how we sort of started the whole business. But yeah, it's just funny that we were so wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and enthusiastic about what we were about to do. We both forgot that, oh shit, there's no money in the bank. And this is a big bit of disruption we're about
Graham,
to
that never changed for about 8 years. It was the same thing. It's like, yeah, the bank's looking a bit low.
Yeah, I get a call every Sunday from Mark saying, how much money can you get?
Yeah.
Not again, please.
Yeah, I mean, the first year, I don't know how many times I used to have to start. I used to have to do it brutally because otherwise it's like really difficult to, talk around the subject. I literally just go to Graham and say, yeah, I need more money. Yeah. Well, when do you need it? Like now, like like literally today. Yeah. Oh, well, I've got any notice? Yes, I know. Oh dear. But I was thinking about this last night actually. Do you remember how it came together on how it got from where it was literally just a conversation in our heads? Because obviously I knew that me and Graham used to speak every single day. So I'd be at work and I'd always wait for my boss to go. I was very hardworking, by the way. But my boss would go out the room and then I'd say, oh, it's time to call Graham up. And I'd call him and he'd call me. Do you remember kind of where it went to, Graham, and how it even got to where it got to? I mean, can you remember a couple of conversations? Because I've actually got a memory of it, but I'm going to have fuzzy moments, and so are you, because it's such a long time ago. Can you remember from your side where and how the conversation happened?
I'm definitely suffering from early, whatever you call it. See, I can't even remember what it's called.
What do you mean, dementia?
That's the one. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's bad. No, I've got the weirdest memories. I'll sort of hum in the office some random Shake and Vac advert, word for word from the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, I missed that day to day. To be fair.
Now I've got that in my head. I'm just singing it in my head now.
Yeah, and Mark will be, what are you going on about now? Like, just focus on the bloody business, not Shake and Vac adverts. But yeah, I don't remember. I remember. Well, I remember writing a business plan on a laptop for the business. And then one day, two nice young fellas came in from Walthamstow into my office and asked me politely if I'd like to be relieved of my laptop whilst they sort of held a knife to me. So the original business plan got stolen in Chinkford, sent to Walthamstow, and I had to ring Mark up and say it's gone.
I remember actually really badly. My first reaction was, what about the content? What about the business plan? I didn't actually say, are you okay? It's just like, where's the business plan? What's happened to it? And you went, I don't know, it's been taken.
It's in Walthamstow, yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So yeah, no. So a lot of it does get really fuzzy when I look back and try and piece all those things together and conversations but it didn't start out as an online estate agency. It started out as an FSBO kind of play, like for sale by owner, private sales. And there was the Little House Company randomly, I remember, Mark, that sort of springs to mind. There was a company called the Little House Company. I don't know if they even here anymore. I don't hear of them. And there was there another one, Mark? Or was it
Houseweb?
Houseweb, that's it. Yeah. So there was a couple sort of trying to do it, but they weren't on Rightmove. So I do remember the pivotal moment of the business working was that we had to get on Rightmove, and that was the absolute strategy of the business. Otherwise, it was dead. We tried to do it without, and it was clear that was the way we had to do it. But Mark and I were both a bit scared almost to, challenge this model called Rightmove that had overnight become worth billions of pounds. And actually, that's what we had to do in the end. There was several challenges from Rightmove. I know we're bouncing about a bit here, but there were times when we went up against Rightmove about the very definition of what an estate agent is. And Mark and I actually challenged it, and they couldn't they couldn't get rid of us, and we made them change their pricing model. So I mean, even the geographical
even their
pricing
terms and
model that
conditions, they had to actually change their own terms and conditions.
yeah, the geographical pricing model that exists today came from me and Mark challenging Rightmove on what an estate agent is. And that's a bit of a legacy. So yeah, we were brave and we were young and stupid at times, but we had a lot of fun. That was the first thing. It was fun doing it, and then the pressure always sort of grew. The bigger the business got, the more pressure would come, and we'll come on to that, I'm sure, at the end of it all. But at the start, it was nothing but enthusiasm. We're going to do this, and we're gonna create a great business. And I think we did create a really nice company and a really good brand and a really good culture along the way.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I was, yeah, I think my moment when things started, because you come up with this idea and you kind of, as Graham said, when you're young and enthusiastic, you don't always think strategically. You just get on and do stuff. And I think that's that's probably a lesson for a lot of businesses. We were just action led the whole time. We were just doing stuff, trying stuff. We knew, as Graham said earlier, very much that we needed to get on Rightmove. And what we did, without even realizing, to be honest, we were morphing into an estate agency anyway. By adding extra services that we would do for people. And in the end, we literally were an online estate agency. And that's when we made the change. I think that I can clearly remember it. We got a huge lucky break. Like, it was just ginormous because we didn't have any money, as Graham said. So how can you even advertise yourself? Like, how can you even begin as an estate agent? There's two things I just wanted to just cover off really quickly. I did what Graham said earlier. I remember calling Graham up on a Sunday night. Can't remember exactly when it was, how afterwards in terms of when we launched. But I remember we were doing okay. We were getting some listings on. And I called him up and I just said, yeah, like, we're doing all right, because we were only covering Essex. Like, we started and we just called it the Essex Plus or something. And
That's right. Yeah.
I don't know why this plus thing's here. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's weird, isn't it? I never thought about that.
Yeah.
And I called him out and I just said, yeah, we've got something here, but it's never going to be what we want, just in Essex. And I said, I think we've got to go national. And he kind of paused and just went, how are we going to do that then? I said, I'm not sure, but I think we've got to do it. I think we just got to try and do national. And then what happened was, to be fair, Graham, as the estate agent, experienced more than me at that time, would go out in the car and, like, probably we're not going to have enough time to do some of these stories, but some of the things that we did to get this business off and running, I don't know how many people in the country would have done what we did, to be
Well,
completely honest. I mean, driving all the one story was, which we've probably got to say, and I'll never forget this, was when Graham went all the way to, I think, Preston, and then he drove left at like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, get there for like 9 o'clock or something. I'd got into the office about 8, and the phone went about 8:45. His client basically turned around and said, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to cancel. I've had to go into work. I've had like an emergency meeting come up. And obviously he's thinking that Graham's just around the corner, like, 5-10 minutes is no problem. Graham had like got stuck in traffic, been like 6 hours in or something. And I called him up and I just said, I don't know, again, I just, had to be brutal. I just like, I said, where are you? He said, I've just got here. I've just arrived. I said, oh, fantastic. And he said, yeah, I'm just going around about and then I'll be there. I said, I said, you might want to keep going round the roundabout and like come back the way you come now. And he went, what do you mean? I said, I've just cancelled on you. And he just like carried on round and roundabout and just come all the way back home again. I think he got back at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We hadn't done the appointment, we hadn't got payment, and we were just thinking, what are we doing? What are we doing?
I
It was
remember
I think
madness,
it was
being
really.
200 quid, I think, wasn't it? We was trying to
Yeah,
charge.
it was, yeah.
I
200 quid.
remember being heavily pregnant with Elisa, straddling a fridge in your garage, Mark, because you were somewhere, Graham. I don't know where you were in the country, and Mark, you were on your way to Wales.
Oh no, we did it. We did that together. Yeah, we did a property in as close to Ireland as you could get, but still in Wales. And yeah, that was an unbelievable. I mean, we got warnings the night before it was going to be flooding in Wales, and we're like, what are we going to do? I had a little Fiesta at the time, and I didn't even know if it was going to get there, let alone get back. And then the floods came. Oh my God, it was just unbelievable,
Did you get the
unbelievable.
200 quid though?
Yeah, well,
I
we'd
think we
actually
did.
got quite lucky. We did 2 appointments in one, so that was a good
Oh.
day. You know, that was
Yeah.
£400 in the bank.
I think we spent 25 quid on McDonald's that day
Yeah, we did.
because we
The petrol
How
had
much on
probably
breakfast.
cost
petrol?
us. The petrol was 50, 60 quid to get there as well. You know,
Yeah, and then a couple of umbrellas because it was called Stormy Castle, wasn't it? Funny enough.
and was it? I've never seen anything like it. And like, because we were trying to find this place, and we got to where we thought that we needed to get to. And by the this is back before, like, I think it was like you were lucky to have a TomTom. Like, I remember buying a TomTom thinking, God, it's a lifesaver, because otherwise it was maps. You know, like literally, how'd you get from Essex to Stormy Castle? And like, we're just like, where'd you even begin? And we got there, and we couldn't. We kind of knew we were there or thereabouts. We couldn't find it, and we called the guy up. It was like a massive valley. Like, I'd define it as a massive hill. And he said, "Oh yeah, we can see you. Like, if you look up, can you see us?" And we went right to the like literally looking upwards to the sky, and it was this property right at the top of this, like, what it felt like a mountain at the time. I
It was
thought,
like some weird Tim Burton scene out of one
yeah,
of his films. You know,
it
like or
absolutely was.
meets
It
meets
absolutely
Peppa
was.
Pig. Like it was just at the top of this hill. I think it's Peppa Pig. Where you know the cartoon, it just keeps going and going and going and
Yeah,
going. And
yeah.
eventually you get to this thing, and it's like, and it looked haunted, and yeah, it was just on top of this hill. It was really Dracula-esque,
But I
weird
didn't think I was going to
thing.
get up there. I honestly did not think I was going to get up there. And I had to rev the car, and I managed, I don't know how, but we managed to get up to it. And the rain was just unbelievable. Like, I've probably never seen rain like it since. And like, we're like the photographers, we're, you know, and by the way, we only went together because none of us could bear going all the way there on our own.
Mm.
We were just like, well, I can't do it. And well, I can't do it. It's like, well, should we do it together then? And that's when we got you to come in and say, look, can you man the phones? Me and Graham are off to Stormy Castle. What are you doing? So look, I suppose we won't do too many because there's so many of these stories. We'd
Yeah.
literally be here for hours in a great way, by the way. I absolutely, when I look back now, I absolutely adore those times, and those ridiculous things that we did. Actually, they're the most funniest, weirdest, amazing things that I've ever done in my career.
And
I will
you learned
never.
so much from it as well, though, both of you.
Yeah, and I will never. If I could go back over time and do it again, I absolutely would. Which sounds mental, but I honestly would. They were amazing times because I think deep down, me and Graham, we just knew it was going to work. We had such a drive, and I think we knew quite early on, because we didn't have any money, and all of a sudden people were using us. I remember one day we went from getting like one instruction a day, and we started getting twos and threes, and we started getting a bit excited, and we were like, something's happening here. And then it went up more, and then we started getting fives and sixes, and we were like, something's happening here. And then we got a massive lucky break, actually, before Graham came in full time, because he was still working because he didn't have any money, so he needed to keep working. And I was just kind of, don't know how I was keeping going, to be honest, but I just was. We had one massive lucky break. We'd only been going for about 3 months, and we got a double page spread, which we would never get nowadays. I think it was in the Sunday Mirror at the time, double page spread on the case study of us selling a property. And that was just, I remember that. Do you remember the website traffic, Graham, went from having like 10 people on the site to having like 400, and it lasted for
Yeah,
about 2 or 3 weeks. It was unbelievable.
yeah.
Well, just let's kind of try and jump forward just a little bit, because it was 15 years of graft and growing over that time. So obviously it started out with in your garage, Mark, and Graham still needing to work, and driving all over the country for pittance, to then where did
Falling
it get
over on the
to?
decking and nearly breaking his leg as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
when it snowed.
that as well.
Mm.
But where did it get to then? So, when you was when it was at its height, where were you? How many staff did you have? What sort of volume were you doing?
Um, well, because I guess, I don't know, Mark, if you got a bigger work, because I left the business before Mark.
Mm.
If I don't know where it went after that in terms of numbers, but I think we calculated that we'd employed something like 120 different people over that period. How many stayed at one point? It was probably a good 60 or 70 maybe once we had the offices in London, because we ended up expanding the sales team into London, and we had the Chelmsford admin hub as well. So, but and we kept the majority of our staff. I think that's one thing we're quite proud about. Up to the point of serious investment, our retention rate was incredible, really, for an estate agency. But I think our team bought into me and Mark, and we weren't hands off, we were hands on. We were there before them. We stayed till after them, and they could see we were picking the phones up and doing the job. And I think that was really sort of fundamental to that culture that we created, that we was all in it together. We had the best nights out and parties and this, that, and the other. It was great. And it bit of a corny thing, isn't it? A cliche that we're a family, but it did. I think if to me it felt like that, and I think to a lot of the team it felt like that, and they felt that they could trust Mark and myself to take the business forward and give them all a really good career. So yeah, sorry, long answer, but yeah, I think it was that many people that we had in the business, but I don't know if it got much bigger than that, Mark, after I left. I don't really know too much.
It probably went a little bit bigger than that at one stage, and then we were in retraction mode again. So it kind of did, but I think you can probably tell by the tone in our voices was now beginning to change a little bit, because we went from having unbelievable fun. I mean, I think that our first investor that came into the business, and look, let's be honest, for the business to have survived for that long, it did need some help along the way. It did need financial support to get us there. Probably more so that me and Graham didn't take a wage for the first 2 years. And you can't keep doing that forevermore. So our first investment came at an unbelievable time for us, and won't name names here, but our first investor, and if he's listening to this, then he'll know it's about him. But he just allowed us to just be us. He allowed us to run the business without really any influence in it, and the business did really well. And he was quite silent, but was still enthusiastic when he used to come and see us, probably once every 3 months. And it was just a great time. And I think Graham's right, that culture that we had came because we employed the right type of person, very similar people as individuals, and we absolutely maintain people for longer because people like working with the people that they were working with. So I think that first investment in 2006, I think it was, that changed everything, because me and Graham could finally take away, so the pressure come off of us a little bit, so we could really get down and start building the business and become strategy and visionaries and then action people at the same time, rather than just being in it and just working in the business every day.
It was fascinating, really, because we'd never run businesses before, and me and Mark had never been employers, or we didn't know what to do an employment contract. We didn't have ChatGPT back then, so we couldn't even cheat. So some of the stuff we had to go and actually put together behind the scenes, I found it quite intimidating, because I'm more of a creative person rather than an execution person, as Mark would testify. So to all of a sudden jump into building a business and what it's all about and all the components, as you know, Claire, now, there's a lot of crap that goes into what you see. It's not just the Hollywood sign. Behind that is there's stuff that goes on to get it to work. And I think that was for us. We was effectively was building a call center that we didn't know was going to be a call center until it became a call center. And some of our staff, unbelievably, were sitting there with their headsets on, doing 100 calls a day, sometimes more than that, and the hours. So they were logged into their system for maybe 9 hours, but their talk time would be 8 hours, 20 minutes.
I think that was the record, Graham. I don't know if you remember. We actually looked at it one day. Someone had been in the office for like 9 hours and they'd done like 8 hours and 45 minutes on the phone. And we're like, how can you do that when you've got to go to the toilet, you've got to have a break, that we didn't even realize that. And then obviously, we wanted to kind of change that, and that's when we knew we needed some more team members to come in. But look, any business like this went through roller coaster moments. But I think that the first period of time, in terms of bringing, obviously the timing, we could look back at this, and maybe have some regrets along the way. I think we would, because the business isn't here anymore. So I know I do. And I think that a lot of that come from maybe getting our timing wrong when we went to go and raise more money. But to caveat that, we'd seen so many people come and go, Graham, hadn't we? We'd seen people come in, and we thought we had massive problems in 2006, 2007 with, I mean, Tesco's coming into the market massively. There was loads of different people with massive budgets, and little old house network in a tiny little high street shop that then went into a barn. How are we going to cope with it? And we made a decision. We were very close to raising money in 2007, and we actually pulled out at the last moment. I think that we then become a little bit paranoid about, because people were coming in and boom and bust, and we just couldn't allow ourselves emotionally to put the business at risk that way. I know I couldn't. So I think it took a long time for us to then go and raise again, didn't it, Graham? And I think, I think we did the right decision for such a long time. You could argue now, if we'd never raised the money, where would the business be today? Because organically, that business was extraordinary. Like, we did not spend money on marketing, and we knew all our competitors were having to spend a certain amount of money every single month to even compete with us. And we were spending zero at times for most of it. And you wonder now how strong organically that business would be today if it didn't have to go through the boom and bust scenario of raising such a lot of money to try and compete with everyone else.
Well, I think it was, I mean, if you think probably been 2 to 3 years of launching, we had corporates, well-known corporates. Again, won't name them. There's no real point. They know who they are. That tried to buy us. That everyone would know. So me and Mark were having lunches and dinners with CEOs of big companies, with multiple offices, maybe hundreds of offices even in their stable, I think it's fair to say. So they because I think they could sense the danger of, oh shit, this is going to affect us, because they're selling at the time we were selling, I don't know, we might have been taking on 200 properties, selling 100 a month at that point, something like that. So we started to really nibble into the market share a little bit, and we were the only players in the game, really. And that's when the likes of eMove come along, which is run by a guy called Russell Quirk, who you might have heard of at the time.
I think so.
Vaguely.
And then he's a chap in the industry, isn't he? And then the likes of Tepilo, and then Adam Day, of course, is another name. So there was so much happening so quickly. Me and Mark were just becoming reactive to what was happening around us, rather than thinking too much about what we should do. It was like, well, they've just offered that. This corporation that we know wants to take the software off of us for this many millions. We've got this company wants to offer us money to grow it. We've got this private equity guy. We've got this investor angel who's then brought in another 3 other offers from different companies and corporates, like to Barclays. And so me and Mark were going to meeting after meeting. So all of a sudden we've gone from nothing to then getting suited up and presenting to what you sort of call rich, powerful, typical stereotypical men in a boardroom, asking stupid questions like, what car do you drive? And we turn around and say, well, a Renault something or other, Renault Scenic, I think it was at the time. And he's like, oh, don't worry about that. Next year, son, you'll be driving a red Ferrari. And so you kind of got pulled into this world of, aren't we great? And what we've built is brilliant. And naturally, a little bit of ego would always go with that, especially if you're young and you believe what everyone's telling you. So we was kind of just being reactive to all this crazy stuff that was happening around us, one thing after the other, and just trying to make the best decision we could of it, really. But then when, I think, if you fast forward a little bit later to Purple Bricks, when they came on the scene, that changed, the pace of everything changed.
Yeah.
So me and Mark were sort of getting comfortable with raising a bit of money from people, and we was looking at doing that, and we did that a few times, whether it be people in the industry, friends, family, whatever, or clients. We did that, and we was happy in that arena. When Purple Bricks come along, it was like, okay, we can't now F about. This is millions they're raising, and they've got this chap called Neil Woodford behind them. He's like, okay, so what are we going to do? Because that's tens of millions of pounds, from hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands to millions of pounds. And we actually had a very early stage meeting with Michael I don't think Kenny was there, but I certainly remember Michael being there. And I remember Michael Bruce bringing a guy called James Kidd, at the time, who was one of Richard Branson's main marketing guys in Virgin. So do you remember that, Mark? And we had a
I
dinner with
do, because I've never been put
did
off. As everyone knows, I'm a foodie, so having a lovely steak for lunch, I was really enjoying myself, and the conversation was pretty good. And then yeah, Michael said something which I won't say now, but Michael said something, and so I think I stopped eating, and I was ready to leave.
Oh,
So yeah, it was a, you know, I think that you're right. Purple Bricks changed everything, and just changed the game in terms of the interest in the industry, massively. And we felt we had to react.
and is
and
that
we
when
try,
you took on additional investment at that point?
that's
Yeah.
when we took on big money, or for us, big money. But it turns out not big enough, because it wasn't the same as Purple Bricks. You know, I think their first raise was around 8 million. Mark will remember, because he's got good memory. But their second raise, they went back in at 23 million or something like that. And so all of a sudden, you're like, Jesus, like, and it felt like Rightmove, Zoopla at the time, that there was only going to be one winner. And even being Zoopla wasn't that interesting to us. We wanted to be the Rightmove of the online estate agency world. But for that was the size of the ticket we had to go and raise. But you know, as we sit here today, and I'm sure if you ever asked Michael or Kenny what happened, I'm sure they came very close to not being a thing.
Absolutely.
Because they spent and spent and spent, and nothing happened. The needle didn't move, and then it did. But they took it. I think they took it pretty close to the. I don't know, of course, but from what I hear, they took it quite close to the wire, and maybe they had some backup funding arranged. Who knows? But we know they almost run out, and obviously that's a running thing for online estate agencies. Is how long's the runway? That was what we kept being asked. How long can you keep going? How much more money do you need? How much you need to keep spending? And we was writing checks that me and Mark were sort of very uncomfortable with in the end. But we had no choice. It was either it just went all or nothing all of a sudden. It was just weird from being very comfortable and having a great business and built it ourselves from the ground up and really enjoying life, to going, we're being forced now to either evolve or die, and like, this is all alien to us. So it was a real, yeah, it was a shame, but you could see why, because so many people were getting excited about the industry. So many people said the first company to list will be worth £1 billion. That was the prize. So we're like, okay, we just got to flipping go for it then. And that's what we did. But like I say, I think at that point we were scurrying around trying to find the right people with the right money that could help us. And I think as that was going on, we was also arranging talks with Topilo, Hatched, eMove. God knows, I think Yopa might have been around by then. I can't even remember, but I know that there was one meeting that I held in a room with all of the CEOs of all the others, apart from Purple Bricks, to say, are we all going to seriously go and raise individual money, or should we all get together and do this?
Yeah.
And as a combined entity, be bigger than Purple Bricks. But it was almost an impossible, almost stupid idea of ours. And I was sort of chairing that meeting, going, there's too many egos in the room, because as soon as you do that, everyone wants to be the CEO. No one wants to drop their title. No one wants to give up their brand. So it was just the weirdest, strangest, most exciting, upsetting, every emotion, wasn't it, Mark? You can think of was happening at the same time. It was truly bizarre. But I learned so much from it. I can't, even to this
I was just
day,
about to
I
say. I
refer
was just
back to
about to
those
say.
times and thankful for them.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you just couldn't do a business course like what we went through, because we were living in it. And look, obviously we were making mistakes along the way, because it was impossible not to. But we were failing very, very fast, and then adapting and then making improvements. And obviously the key things were going to be, what decisions were we going to make, ultimately that was going to make or break it. And for a while there, we absolutely believed that we'd made it. But you know, we didn't have the amount of funding that the other people did. And that's when it got, the pressure began to build and build and build and build and build. Yeah, so look, this is probably a lot of stuff in the middle there that that we're not going to speak about because it would just extend this interview on through even more. Maybe there's some snippets and some other ones to come in the future. But I think probably where we maybe need to go now is and this will go back to some of the memory bank for me a little bit. Haven't really thought about it for a long time. Was Graham's exit. Can you remember the build up to it, Graham?
Yeah, definitely remember the build up to it, because you don't walk out of your own company overnight. And I think actually Mark understood it. Mark understood it at the time because he could see I was going through a really difficult period with it. And that's mentally. That's nothing to do with anything other than my own mental health, which back then wasn't really a thing. It was still, you don't talk about it or you just get on with it. But it got to the point for me.
I can remember one call, Graham. Sorry, just from my memory back. There was one, and we're not going to talk about the people here, but there was one call where Graham was quite quiet on the call, and I was fighting our corner. And that call was one of the worst calls I've ever been on. And I remember coming off the call, and then obviously me and Graham we spoke afterwards, and I think we knew there was some kind of break, there was some kind of issue, and I was very confident that it affected Graham, even though it was actually aimed at me personally, aimed at me. I think it really affected Graham. I don't know if you remember that call, and whether that you agree that was that one of the light bulb moments. I think when
definitely.
I think back to it.
Yeah, I think it's just that last bit of sense in you goes, one human should not be allowed to talk to another human like that. Is where it got to me, and it's not fair that they just did that to you. And I thought at that point, I said to Mark, or I intimated to Mark shortly after that, or before I left, that we did this together. Let's go together, kind of thing. Like, fuck it, you know, let's just go. Because if this is the way the company's going forward, this isn't us. This isn't what we built. You know, and I romanticize about it a bit, but it was incredible what we did before we were forced to go and do a different direction. And it's a bit sad. But yeah, I do remember the build up to it. And I remember obviously speaking to my family and my wife, and I had 2 kids then. And it just got to the point where when you go to bed and you think, I'd rather be asleep than awake, is probably the best way I could put it.
Wow.
I mean, that's when I mean, Graham had spoken. We did speak about this. It didn't come as a massive bolt out of the blue for me. It was me and Graham, obviously, because we were the only ones going through it together in terms of this pressure and the changes that were happening, and what's available, what's not. Or there was so many things happening behind the scenes. And look, it's not to say the mistakes weren't made, right? Yeah, I put my hands up and say that sometimes I think we should have been stronger in certain situations. And we could have made some different choices along the way. But Graham had spoken. It came up after that call, I think, pretty quickly. And Graham, you spoke about leaving, or both of us leaving. Really, it was never I'm going. It was a case of, I think we need to really consider our options. About 2 or 3 times, I think it was. And I think on the 4th, you said exactly what you just said to me on the phone there. And I remember coming off the phone thinking, we can't carry on. Something's got to change. A decision has got to be made, because if someone is saying that's how much that they're affected by it, and obviously the last thing I wanted was Graham to leave. And I remember I went for a walk. For about 3, and I don't walk. And I went for about no, and I went for a 3-hour walk. I didn't even know where I was going. I left the house, headset on, and just left, and thought, I don't know where I'm going. And I just walked and walked and walked and walked and walked, and it took me about 3 hours. And I come back, and I just thought, what? And all I was thinking about was how Graham was feeling, firstly, and second, should I leave? Can I go? That's where I was. because I agreed with Graham.
Mm.
If we'd gone together, it would have, I suppose, been more powerful at that time. And it was a really tough, then I had to do that by myself. I didn't really have anyone else to talk to about it, because I couldn't talk to Graham.
Mm.
Well, we did, but I needed to talk to myself to get my own head right. And I clearly, I know exactly where I walked now, but I didn't know where I was going at the time.
Mm. Do you know what? It's so, you're right, the tone. It started so joyful, and because I was part of that journey from the very beginning, and we did have a great time, and I loved being part of that business, and we did build an amazing culture, and the staff, we got so lucky, I think, with the people we attracted into that business. You know, it was one of the best times of my life, without a shadow of a doubt. But you're right, as soon as that pressure started to come with needing to raise so much, because Purple Bricks had obviously ploughed so much money into it, it just became a whole different animal, and not what any of us set out to want to be part of. And in the end, it just felt like a fight to the end almost. That's kind of how I can explain it, as being part of that business with you. I wasn't involved in those board meetings. I didn't have to listen to those horrible conversations, or know any of the sort of pressure that you two were under. But being part of that business, it just felt like towards the end, it was just a constant battle to sort of stay alive, and the fun had gone out of it a little bit.
Yeah, I think sort of the trust went
Mm,
in the boardroom, I guess is the best way to put it. And for me, and for Mark, I'm sure, was everything, because me and Mark built that business on trusting each other. And we're both very different. Mark's very good at certain things that I'm not, and vice versa. But it just worked. We always joked it was sort of Ant and Dec style telepathy between us, that we could just go to a meeting and not ever speak over each other or say the same thing. We just knew what we were going to do, and we didn't even have to discuss it. We would
mm,
just go and get it done, whether it was raising money or supply deals or hiring or firing. It was just any meeting we were comfortable. We both knew exactly what we were going to do without even discussing it. It was brilliant. And we never had an argument or a falling out.
No,
And
not
that's
one.
not to say that it's not healthy to do it. People say, well, you should, but it wasn't that. It was that we had too much respect for where we'd come from, and our egos were like, we come from nothing to do this together. Why would we ever call each other out for anything? We were trying to do the best thing for the company all the time and the people in the company. We weren't driving around. We were occasionally driving around in nice cars, but it wasn't like we was, multi-millionaires enjoying the high life and screw everyone else. It was never that.
no.
We had our moments where we, rented a nice car here and there, and it was nice to do it. But I think the trust and the respect were so strong that having a business without that in it, it was alien to me. And all of a sudden, I was starting to question who I could trust, and
Mm,
that's never been a thing before. I think mentally that can really get you if you feel like you can't trust people that you're in a room with and close to, and you have to start wondering. It's just you probably know in personal life, Claire, and in professional life, you've had both, where you
yeah,
think someone's wrong with me, and like now I'm second guessing everything.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's even new people that you meet, it's not their fault, but you probably don't give them as much trust immediately as you would have done in the past before you got wronged. It's been the same for me in business.
Mm,
I trust everybody in business until they wrong me.
mm,
But I've learned over the years that that's my weakness,
mm,
because it'd always been so easy.
mm,
So and to this day I still have issues with trusting people in business, and it can never be like it was with me and Mark.
And that's sad, isn't it? Do you think that's sad?
It's just
Um,
business. I think it's
I
life,
think
isn't it?
it's just
It's
reality.
sad.
I think what we had was something incredibly special. And Graham's so right that I literally knew what he was thinking in a split second within every single meeting that we was ever in. And I think he'd say the same thing backwards. And we'd finish the meeting and we would literally be on the same page, but in a different way. Like our skill sets were so different. And I think, my biggest thing was, am I staying? So I made the decision, obviously, to stay. I just couldn't bring myself to go. I wasn't being affected mentally as much as Graham at that time. I did though.
Yeah.
I did. It happened after, badly, and actually forgotten about that. So I was talking, it kind of came out. But it was the connection was so strong, and the direction of what we know we needed to do, and I'm absolutely convinced that if we'd stayed together, we would have evolved that business into something actually very, very different to where online agency was at that time. We would have absolutely developed a new model, probably similar to what's going on in this country right now, inside that business. And I think from my side, when Graham, I always remember the time Graham come to pick his stuff up, and it was really, really tough, really hard, because I felt very alone, because I was actually in a little hut of an office at the time as well, wasn't actually with the team. I actually made a decision very quickly after about a month to come back into the office, because I had to be surrounded by people. I was literally by myself, because normally me and Graham would be next door, and we'd do our coffee meetings, and sometimes a coffee meeting could be 10 minutes. The next day it could be 2.5, 3 hours, because we were constantly thinking about the business, strategizing, looking to obviously drive it forward. And as soon as Graham went, that went, and I was literally sitting there by myself. And that's when you're going to make, unless you got someone to bounce off of, whether that's someone like me and Graham are basically like coaches to each other. On reflection now, that's what we were. And then when you lose that, that is really, really hard. That's really, really, and I think, to be honest, from the day Graham left, I was doing my utmost to make the right decisions. And we were so close, and so many different times actually afterwards, to be fair, the business could have gone on to strength for strength, for just 1 or 2 lucky breaks, which we didn't quite get. But I knew deep down that I didn't have my partner that I needed inside that business. I knew it. And I think you used the word earlier there, Claire, battling along. And that's what I felt like I was battling every day. And it was very, 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 very hard, particularly when you've done it for 15 years. And then it changes on you after 15. Maybe if it was a year or two, it would be very different. After 15 years, it was practically impossible to keep that business going in the same direction, because we would bounce off of each other.
You touched on it earlier though, but I mean, what you guys learned over that time. I mean, you talk about failing forward. You made decisions, you got into action straight away. You didn't know what you were doing, but you just made decisions and you went for it, and that didn't work, and we tried this instead. You're basically the epitome of what every book I've read since tells you to do, which is, take action, fail fast, fail forward. That's exactly what you were doing, without really realizing it, which is probably why you got to the heights that you did, and you built an incredible business that you did. And were it not for the fact that Purple Bricks came in and raised all that money, and everything changed, and the cost per click went through the roof and everything else, where would we be? Where could that business be? And it would have been down to your hard work, your creativity, that dynamic between the two of you, strategizing, making quick decisions, taking action. It was amazing to watch as somebody that was part of that business with you. And I feel some of that rubbed off on me. I learned, the same thing. Just get into action. Don't spend too long getting your ducks in a row. Just make the decision, trust in yourself, trust in your business partner, and go and get the job done. And I'm just immensely proud of you both. Obviously, Mark as my brother, but Graham, a dear friend that I've known since I was 12 years old. It was amazing to be part of, and it's great to see how you've both taken those learnings as well, and developed businesses since. So you should be really proud of yourselves. I hope you are.
It's something I've never looked back on, because me and Mark always said that one day when it was working and we thought we was going to be successful, we'd say one day when we've really cracked it, we'll sit down, we'll go out for dinner, and we used to call it a doubters party. So I said we'll throw a party for all the people that doubted us, just for a laugh, and said you're not going to make it, this, that, and the other, and we'll reminisce over everything that ever happened. Yeah. Unfortunately, that day never happened, and that was the one day out of anything I wanted that day to happen. It never happened, so we never really did that. Like every now and then, we'll have our moments on WhatsApp or whatever, and we'll send something funny or remind each other of the good old days. But I've never looked back at, never really thought of it as an achievement, other than it was just a crazy ride. But there's probably 1,000 things in there that I should be proud of, but I'm not, if that makes sense, because I just don't think about it. And I still see it as a failure in the sense that it was a business case failure, but I see it as a success in so many other ways. But I can never have that glory moment of looking back and going, oh, it all led up to this final great thing that happened for us, because it didn't. So I try not to look back, but I remember, and I've got the scars as Mark has, from what it was like to go to war at that time with people like Purple Bricks and investors and corporate money and all the other things that we come up against. We've got the scars to prove it, and that's how you learn. So I'm forever grateful for it. But it's a very difficult thing to look back on with pride, which is a weird thing to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think
it does make sense.
I'm very similar. I think that I look back, and for me, it feels just like a massive failure. I think when it actually finally ended, that was really difficult. I had to look myself in the mirror, and it took me months and months and months to get over it, probably years to even think about it properly. Even like, this is, where are we, 5 years on? But it's still tough.
First time you've spoken about it properly.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but it's because it still hurts, because I still believe that we were onto something, and I think we could have remodeled it, and we would have. But look, it is what it is. You know, we can't kind of go back, but it still does feel like a failure. However, when I do look back, and you talk about the sense of pride, the biggest sense of pride I had is the impact it had on my life with my family, because whilst it was stressful, and it was always, weirdly, it was more financially, we were under more financial pressure before the investment, because it was just like, are we going to be able to pay the bills at the end of the month? That was a month by month basis for us. So we used to think, can we turn over a certain amount of money to be able to pay the bills? All right, because we didn't have this massive amount of money in the bank. The pressure changed when obviously we took investment money on, which is natural. But yeah, I just think that it was we should be proud of kind of what we achieved. I think the biggest thing for me is, sometimes when I don't see this very often, because I don't really go on social media that much anymore, but when I now and again I see some comments from some of the old team members and staff members that talk about, you know, some of the times that they had at our company, that makes me feel proud. And I think that's something that we can look back on and say that, you know, we did achieve something pretty special in that regard.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that we absolutely need to do another of these podcasts and talk more about FIA and obviously everything else that you've achieved since House Network, Graham. But I just feel that today that was something that just needed to be addressed. It's never really been spoken about in the public arena, and I thought it was about time. So we'll have to book another one in to move on and talk about what you've achieved since, because that's pretty special too.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. It's been really great speaking to you. So thanks ever so much, Graham. Look.
Thank you.
Right, let's just